Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to Nine Nar Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. I Am That, Talks with Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj is a modern classic of Advaita Vedanta presented through dialogues between the Indian sage Nisargadatta Maharaj and visitors who come seeking clarity about self, suffering, and freedom. Rather than offering a step-by-step program, the book revolves around direct inquiry into the sense of I and the assumption that we are limited persons living inside a separate world. In conversations that move from everyday questions to radical spiritual pointers, Nisargadatta challenges habits of identification with thoughts, memories, roles, and emotions, and repeatedly redirects attention to immediate awareness. The tone is often uncompromising yet practical, emphasizing what can be tested in lived experience instead of accepted as belief. Readers encounter recurring themes such as the witness, the nature of consciousness, the difference between knowledge and being, and the possibility of peace that does not depend on circumstances. The result is a rigorous invitation to examine what you truly are. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, the core pointer, resting in the sense of I am, a central thread in the dialogues, is the instruction to return to the simple, pre-conceptual feeling of being, often framed as the sense of I am. Nisargadatta treats this not as a mantra to repeat mechanically, but as a doorway into direct experience prior to personal stories. The book explores how most psychological distress is fueled by identification with changing content, such as thoughts, sensations, relationships, and personal history. By repeatedly turning attention to the bare fact of awareness, the reader is encouraged to notice that the sense of existence is constant even as experiences come and go. The conversations clarify that I am is not the personality, not the body, and not a self-image, but the immediate knowing that experience is happening. From this standpoint, spiritual practice becomes less about acquiring special states and more about recognizing what is already present. The approach is rigorous because it asks for honesty in self-observation, not philosophical agreement. Over time, the dialogue suggests sustained attention to this fundamental sense can weaken compulsive identification and reveal a more stable peace. Secondly, witness consciousness and the mechanics of identification. Another major topic is the distinction between awareness as witness and the stream of phenomena that appears within it. Nisargadatta repeatedly invites questioners to look at what they call self and see how it is assembled from perceptions, feelings, and mental labeling. The book emphasizes that suffering often arises when consciousness contracts around a particular narrative, such as, I am the body, I am the doer, or I am the one who is lacking. Through dialogue, the reader is led to investigate how these identifications operate moment by moment and to recognize that whatever is observed cannot be the observer in the deepest sense. This does not mean rejecting the world or becoming emotionally numb, but shifting the reference point from reactive interpretation to clear seeing. The witness perspective also reframes fear and desire as movements in mind rather than absolute commands. The conversations explore how attention becomes entangled with thoughts and how simple noticing can disentangle it. By exposing identification as a process rather than a fact, the book offers a practical way to relate to experience without being dominated by it. Thirdly, mind, time, and the illusion of a separate person, the dialogues frequently challenge the assumption that a separate individual exists as an enduring entity moving through time. Nisargadatta treats the person as a useful convention but not ultimate reality, and points out how the sense of continuity is largely constructed from memory and anticipation. This theme examines how time is experienced through mind, and how the psychological self is reinforced by constant reference to past and future. Readers are encouraged to examine whether the self they defend can be found apart from thoughts and images. The book also discusses the difference between functional identity, such as name and responsibilities, and existential identity, meaning what you actually are. By questioning the reality of the separate person, the dialogues address common fears about meaninglessness or loss of control. The emphasis is that freedom is not achieved by improving the person indefinitely, but by seeing through the assumption that the person is the core of being. This shift is presented as intensely practical. When experience is met without the extra layer of self-centered interpretation, emotional turbulence can lessen and clarity can increase. The result is a reframing of life as happenings within awareness rather than a personal struggle. Fourthly, knowledge, experience, and the limits of spiritual concepts. A recurring feature of the book is its suspicion of secondhand knowledge, including spiritual theories, mystical experiences, and elaborate metaphysics. Nisargadatta often redirects seekers from collecting concepts to verifying truth in immediate experience. The dialogues explore how the mind turns even profound teachings into beliefs that preserve a subtle sense of separation, such as I understand non-duality or I am progressing. The book highlights the difference between intellectual clarity and existential recognition. suggesting that liberation is not an experience to possess, but a shift in identity from content to awareness. This theme also addresses the role of language, noting that words can point but also mislead, especially when taken as literal descriptions of reality. Readers encounter a kind of disciplined skepticism that cuts through spiritual consumerism and performance. At the same time, the book does not dismiss practice. It reframes practice as the steady removal of false assumptions and the cultivation of direct seeing. By emphasizing what is prior to thought, the dialogues invite a grounded spirituality that does not depend on extraordinary states and does not require adopting a new belief system. Lastly, freedom in daily life, detachment, love, and action without doership. Although the book is uncompromising in its metaphysical pointers, it repeatedly returns to how understanding expresses itself in ordinary living. A key topic is action without the burden of doership, the idea that life unfolds and actions occur, while the deep self remains untouched by outcomes. Nisargadatta does not promote passivity. Rather, he challenges the psychological claim of ownership that fuels pride, guilt, and anxiety. Detachment here is not indifference, but clarity, the ability to participate fully while not being internally trapped by craving and fear. The dialogues also touch on love and compassion as natural expressions when self-centered fixation loosens, since experience is no longer filtered primarily through the needs of a separate person. Readers are encouraged to see how suffering is amplified by resistance to what is, and how a simpler relationship with thoughts and emotions can restore balance. The practical implication is that spiritual insight is tested in relationships, work, and adversity. By shifting attention from control to understanding, the book presents a way to live with greater ease and integrity without needing life to match a preferred script. In conclusion, this book is best suited for readers drawn to direct spiritual inquiry, especially those interested in Advaita Vedanta, non-dual philosophy, meditation, or self-investigation beyond techniques and affirmations. It can also serve seekers who feel stuck after years of reading about spirituality but still experience persistent anxiety, restlessness, or a sense of lack. The benefit lies in its relentless focus on what can be verified in experience, the difference between awareness and the changing contents of mind, and the way identification creates unnecessary suffering. By repeatedly pointing the reader back to the simple fact of being, the dialogues can support calmer attention, clearer self-understanding, and a more stable sense of peace that is less dependent on circumstances. Compared to many modern spirituality titles that package enlightenment as a lifestyle upgrade, this work stands out for its rigor and simplicity. It does not rely on inspirational storytelling or a system of steps. It offers a living tradition of inquiry through conversation, where objections and confusions are met directly. That makes it worth buying if you want a foundational text you can revisit repeatedly, each time discovering new depth as your understanding matures. Its enduring reputation comes from this timeless, practical insistence on truth over consolation. If you would like to support Nisargadatta Maharaj, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.